As a howling wind sweeps across the vast white plains, scarcely dotted with the creaking trunks of trees, a hulking shadow prowls the wooded land. Spotting its prey, a gargantuan Columbian mammoth, it circles around, using the cover of the falling snow to its advantage. It waits for the perfect opportunity to strike, while each footstep falls silently to the snowy ground. It bides its time until it's ready. Then, after a deep breath, its legs help it to explode from cover. As they thunder along the earth, claws like meat hooks protract forward and out, latching onto the mountain of meat. And finally, the predator reveals its greatest weapon: two 8-inch-long canines that jut from a gaping maw as they plunge deep into the throat of the mammoth. Wrestling and holding on for what could only feel like ages to the mammoth, the predator ensures the kill is completed as the prey collapses and is subsequently consumed. A just reward for energy well conserved and expertly unleashed. This is the ritual belonging to one of the Pleistocene Ice Age's most ferocious predators, Smilodon populator. With its iconically large teeth, specially adapted for taking down the megafauna of the Pleistocene, including giant mammoths, Smilodon populator is often regarded as the king of this ice world, in terms of its ability to outmatch opponents and prey alike. But just how often did it need to prove to the competition that it was worthy of that title? How did early understanding and studies of this massive beast change over time? And where did it fit into this lost, frozen world, both while the ice stood strong and when it began to melt? We'll be exploring all these questions and more throughout the course of this video. So, without further ado, my name is Rick, and this is Archaic Worlds. To give some background into the scientific discovery of the Smilodon, we can start with the earliest documented excavation of the Smilodon genus, which dates back to 1835, when the Danish paleontologist, zoologist, and archaeologist Peter Wilhelm Lund began an 8-year-long mission to unearth, excavate, document, and classify over 20,000 fossilized bones in his settled home of Lagoa Santa, Brazil. This species in particular he dubbed Smilodon populator in 1842, the genus meaning double-edged knife tooth, and the species translating roughly to devastator. Lund also unearthed several other species during his 8-year expedition to Brazil, including giant ground sloths and mammoths, but we'll save those for another video. Now, the Smilodon genus consists of 3 different species to date, the other 2 being Smilodon fatalis and Smilodon gracilis. It's hypothesized that the 3 branched off from a common ancestor by the name of Megantereon, who lived in Africa some 3.5 million years ago, and possibly migrated into the Americas over the Bering Land Bridge. The Megantereon's descendant, the Smilodon, would eventually come to rule an area that spanned large portions of North, Central, and South America. In terms of time span, this genus dominated the Americas from 3.5 million years ago to about 10,000 years ago, toward the end of the Quaternary glaciation. And that's not to say its death marked the end of the Ice Age or anything, because we're technically still in it. Now, an accurate number of Smilodons throughout their near 4 million year reign is debated, but to give a small window into the scope of their population density, over 160,000 fossils were found in the famous La Brea tar pits in Los Angeles, California, the oldest being about 50,000 years old. This doesn't give us accurate numbers across both continents, but it does give us some insight into how prevalent they were, not only as predators, but also in their ability to maintain strong population over time. It's these insights and many more that make the La Brea tar pits such an incredible epicenter for scientific research. The tragedy of so many different species of animals, both extinct and still thriving, falling into the same pits of tar over tens of thousands of years is definitely sad, but Their tragic fates are the reason behind leaps and bounds in scientific discoveries through the years, and that, without a doubt, adds some purpose to the loss of life. If we were to travel back in time to this world locked in a fierce battle between ice and life to examine a Smilodon up close, specifically Smilodon populator, we'd be surprised to find that despite pop cultural belief, you wouldn't find it near the ice at all, though it was certainly prevalent. For instance, much of Peru and Argentina were completely covered in glacial ice hundreds of feet high. Much like lions today, the saber-tooths preferred dry open plains as their hunting grounds. Brazil especially consisted of regions varying from tropical grasslands to savanna to full-on deserts, which would have been quite similar to northern Africa of today. Throughout most of the Pleistocene as well, food was not scarce beyond the glaciers, as animals that would have fallen victim to the Smilodon would include ground sloths like Catonix cuvieri, wild horses or Equus neogius, relatives of alligators like the broad-snouted caiman who are still alive today, long-trunked ungulates like Macrauchenia, armored rodents such as Dodicurus, the Colombian mammoth who had much less hair than its woolly counterpart who never traveled to South America, and many more. When it came to rival predators, the fierce competitors that often clashed with the Smilodon would have included Speothus passivorus, Protocyon troglodytes, and the Phorus racos, also known as the terror bird. Now, when it came to securing kills and fending off predators, the Phorus racos likely would have proven to be incredibly difficult to fend off. These were simultaneous apex predators alongside the Smilodon in this region of southern Brazil, meaning that confrontations over the same meals must have happened regularly. The giant predatory birds were one of the most dangerous animals of the Pleistocene due to its enormous beak, which was capable of biting huge chunks clean out of its prey, early humans included. In fact, it's likely that the Smilodon avoided confrontation with the terror bird when it could, especially if we use modern-day parallels to draw conclusions. For example, modern lions, as observed through the years, tend to avoid ostriches, as it proves difficult to outmatch their extreme agility, high-located central nervous system, and their ability to send razor-bladed kicks at their foes. Despite this, however, a lion is perfectly capable of killing an ostrich, and though terror birds did have much larger beaks, the Smilodon populator would have likely been just as capable. The temperament of a Smilodon can't be known for sure, as they've been extinct for about 10,000 years, but it's believed to be similar to the big cats of today. One way we know this is through information gathered through fossilized dental remains. Without a real-life specimen, we'll never really know for sure exactly how they behaved, but by examining their teeth, we do know that serious abscesses or injuries caused by fighting for dominance or caused during hunts did not mean certain immediate death. In these scenarios, it's apparent that this simply led to an increase in the consumption of softer foods, like carrion, from hunts already made by other animals. In 2015, there was a study conducted whose findings were published in PLOS ONE scientific journal, which basically proposes that the large upper canines grew at a rate that was twice as fast as modern big cats. Using the same methods they used to find out the tooth eruption rate for modern big cats, the team involved concluded that these teeth grew at a rate of 6 millimeters per month until they were fully grown. This meant that although it took years to reach their full size, the teeth grew exponentially faster than the teeth of lions or tigers. The study examines the isotopic oxygen in the teeth being tested. In other words, Peter Wilhelm Lund would not have had access to this particular method of tooth eruption testing, let alone know that such a test was possible. But if he knew that we'd be able to get near exact dates for teeth development at various life stages in an animal that had been extinct for over 10,000 years, he'd likely have thought it was absolutely bananas. It just goes to show that the differences in methods of study when it came to extinct animals back in the early 1800s compared to modern day were vast. And to fixate on teeth just a bit more, evidence does appear to be leaning in favor of Smilodons being highly social animals that are likely to have hunted in packs. as a staggering amount of bones with signs of healing in the La Brea tar pits point to an incredibly secure lifestyle where individuals had the protection of others to be able to go long spans of time that allow for such healing. And while these specific specimens are Smilodon fatalises and located only in one small part of the world, it wouldn't be a stretch to assume that populators had the same help from pack members when it came to prolonging their lives through social groups. Now, with the scientific information laid out, allow me to paint a more common scenario than the one I started this video with, one that would take us a bit more north from the Patagonian ice sheets where that description likely would have taken place. Welcome to the Cerrado savanna of the late Pleistocene. Imagine, for a moment, you are peering out from atop a tree, from which you're able to see tall, tropical grassland for miles, in all directions, stopped only by what appears to be the faint outline of mountains covered in thick rainforest in the far distance. The other trees that scarcely poke out above the grass provide shelter for ancient horses, ground sloths, and herds of Dodocaurus, while they wait out a seasonally harsh midday sun. In the open plains between the trees, a stream can be seen running through, a haven for those that have traveled long treks across this golden savanna sea. But although this stream can be a haven for some, for others it spells their doom. The reason being that stalking this golden grass is a small pack of 3 Smilodons who have proven for centuries that they are capable of taking down any unsuspecting victim wandering these plains. As the shimmering stream reflects a sun even more golden than the grass surrounding it, a large female Dodocaurus shuffles its head from out of the grass and into the sparkling water. As she shakes off the mud and dirt she picked up during her pilgrimage, she takes intermittent sips from the stream, which give her much-needed respite from the sun beating down on her massive domed armor encompassing her back. It's then that she suddenly finds herself tipping over into a thick mud. A fear strikes her to the core as the thought of tipping over and drowning races through her mind. Thankfully, a tug is felt on her thick ball-ended tail, indeed tipping her over, but also saving her from perishing in a watery grave. That relief of being saved is then cut short by a sharper dread, more shocking than slipping into a stream could ever be. For her savior is none other than the largest of 3 Smilodons. That largest one is a female at the age of 5 years or thereabouts, and has a thick orange coat, while the other 2 males are a year or so younger. They are slightly and equally smaller as well, only one is browner in color and the other grayer. The humongous cats are poised and ready to carve open their gift-wrapped meal, whose belly lay face up toward the sky, with 3 pairs of some of the largest canines the mammalian world had ever seen. However, just as the 3 killers are about to bite into their meal, claws the size of human fingers swat through the air. A terror bird, Forus racos, decides to make a play for the easy meal, and although outnumbered 3-1, this bird towers above the Smilodons, defiantly crying out loud across the plains. The stark, gray feathers belonging to the bird glisten oily in the sun, contrasted by the bright red color of its snout and vivid yellow of its screeching beak. The largest of the Smilodons decides here and now to stand its ground and send back a menacing snarl paired with a blood-boiling growl. For the 3 of them had not eaten in some time and were growing desperate. Though, for the Forus racos, continuing its defiance, it knows that in order to eat, it has to fight for it. So, all 4 predators have at it for the kill, swiping at each other with their claws at first, then exchanging pounces, and finally exchanging bites. The snapping of the terror bird's beak just narrowly misses the largest of the Smilodons, as the grayer leaps up and clamps down on the bird's neck. The browner Smilodon follows suit, and yanks hard on the left leg, ultimately bringing the combatant down to the ground. As the terror bird lay dying, the largest Smilodon rears its head to look for the Doedicurus, but unfortunately, it seems it managed to escape amidst the noise and confusion of the fight. No matter though, for a meal is made from the terror bird, whom the troop of Smilodons triumphantly fought hard against. After the bird's bones are stripped clean of its meat, then crushed by jaws with a bite force of over 100 kilograms, and a nice drink is taken from the illustrious stream, the savanna's victorious carnivores make their way to a large rock jutting from the earth below. Shaded by a lone tree, they use the afternoon to laze about and recover from the kill, licking blood from their fur, both belonging to them and the bird. A nap follows, as night fast approaches, revealing an extravagant ocean of stars in the sky, which will act as the backdrop for what may be more opportunities to hunt under cover of darkness. It's within this darkness that a wind picks up across the tall, swaying grass of the savanna. Breathing in this cool wind, the large, orange female cat opens its mouth to taste the potential prey being carried upon the air. She hears the shuffling of horses' hooves, the rustling of grass being flattened by mammoths, and she sighs, a deep sigh, now ready to start the cycle all over again. I hope you enjoyed that vivid description. For this last segment of the video, I'd like to delve into the rather unfortunate demise of the Smilodon and the leading theories as to how it met its end, backed by fossil and, more broadly, geological evidence. It's a widely accepted theory as of today that the Smilodon's cause for extinction can be attributed to some combination of a decrease in available prey due to climate change and overkill at the hands of ancient humans. Once again, using analyses of the teeth belonging to Smilodons toward the end of the Ice Age, it can be concluded that food was incredibly scarce, using two simple, logical statements. When food is scarce, predators tend to eat more of their prey's carcass. And when more of the prey's carcass is eaten, specifically the bones, damage to the predator's teeth becomes much more prevalent. In this case, a study in 2012 identified many deep pits in the teeth of Smilodons of this time, which indicates bone consumption, as opposed to the parallel scratches that can arise from eating mostly red meat. Humans arrived on the scene in South America at least 21,000 years ago, as showcased by fossil evidence of tool use in Argentina. Understanding that, with this food scarcity on the rise, comes more competition for said food. Subsequently, since Smilodons couldn't compete with the advanced and unprecedented intellect of human beings at the time, it's simple to conclude that humans had a hand in wiping out these giant-toothed predators for good when push came to shove for consumption of megafauna during this time period. Oftentimes during this era, if you were a human, you probably lived in a large group, giving you not just the advantage of community, but also the manpower to overcome anything the late Pleistocene could throw at you. So the question remains, could you survive a tussle with saber-toothed cats? Well, assuming you understood the importance of banding together with your fellow man or woman, it's likely you had the tools and tactics to fend off both them and their giant teeth. But if you were all alone out there wandering the grasslands, let's just say your odds would probably drop significantly. Now, I started this video with a more popularized scenario of what the mainstream media thinks of the Smilodon and what their habitat was like. But then I went on to give a more refined understanding of what this particular archaic world consisted of for these big cats. But that's not to say the first scenario never could have played out. This begs the question, when did these killers prowl the ice of the Pleistocene? And the answer comes down to how desperate a time it would need to be for a Smilodon populator to not only venture off the savannah and into the harsh cold of the ice world, but to work up the courage to take down something as massive as a Columbian mammoth as well. This time period would likely have been at the very end for the Smilodon, when the food was scarce, and seemingly around every corner was a group of humans beating you to every meal. That would leave you desperately searching far and wide for sustenance, even deep into the south, where the last of the glaciers stood, and the meaty mammoths withstood harsh, cold conditions. This is where you would likely need to push yourself, to go above and beyond for the kill, into a cold and unforgiving archaic world, as you and your kind slowly faded into the lost chapters of prehistory. Thank you very much for watching our very first episode. Be sure to stay tuned for more by liking and subscribing to the channel so you never miss a single thing as we grow this source for educational content. With that, I'm your friend Rick, and this has been Archaic